Alright everyone, it's time for another garden update. I figured the last one for May. Everything is looking spectacular. This got freshly weeded and fertilized yesterday. So you can see now, look at the size of those collards already, and it's not even June, and the beets, they're going to be so great. I love beets, but you know, last year any beets I planted failed. The Swiss chard's looking good. And in the gaps, what I always do, Nicotiana and chamomile have naturalized every bed. So if there's any gaps, that decreases the odds that that space is wasted. Like this is one of the Nicotiana. I think this is one of the biggest ones. That'll be, you know, it'll flower for a couple of months. The cabbage is actually looking pretty good here. You know, sometimes they tip over a bit. You know, their stems can't hold up the weight of the plant. It's too successful. And there's a lot of weeds in here that I have to get still, but I've munched them down enough so that the plants will be okay for a while. But look at that salad mix. All the mustard, there's radishes in there, there's some iceberg lettuce and a few spinach plants. And that's gonna be really tasty. That'll be ready. I'll probably pick it down in a couple days. The turnips are looking good too. Some of them died. Occasionally a turnip will, let me see if there's one here, like this. Occasionally one will randomly wilt like this. You'll just find it all of a sudden it's whizzled up and dead. And I think some sort of insect or something must go after the root and snip it off and eat it. But you know, the attrition is still fairly low. And again, there's still Nicotiana and other plants to fill in the gaps, so it doesn't really matter. As far as the peppers, those have started to recover. You know, the ones that had been frosted down. These two are Cubanelles. Those would be really yummy. This didn't spawn a cucumber, so I'm going to try to transplant one of the others there very carefully and see what happens. I'm not sure if this is actually going to produce any jalapenos though, dude. I think it got injured a little bit too much and can't really grow, but all the others recovered fine. These three are sweet bell peppers, so I need to get another hot pepper or two. Zucchini, looking fine. This one, the zucchini died randomly, so I was upset about that. And I'm not sure the pumpkin got fucked too, but I'm just gonna have a little flower patch there. You know, fuck it. I don't even really care about pumpkins. I can buy pumpkins. Who cares? The tomatoes are flowering a bit, and they're all doing very, very well. So those would be great. And the corn and beans, you can see. Yeah, knee-high by the 4th of July. Don't worry about that. They'll definitely be like waist-high by then. They got done being fertilized yesterday too. What I'm using is an organic kelp meal fertilizer. Neptune's Harvest, I think it's called, or something. It's pretty good. It smells like fish though, so you know, be careful. Onions. Over here, there are asparagus actually coming through. Those two did manage to make it. Something was wrong with the roots of those, I think. And there are some poppies coming up here, a little bit sporadically, but it'll be fine. They'll fill in a little bit more, and there'll be a nice little patch of color over here, along with some Nicotiana. And a few of these. This is the gas plant. This is the Dictamnus alba. It did manage to sprout up through. So it did survive, which is really good news because I was afraid of it dying. That means I can transplant it. All the perennials, they're going to be irises blooming pretty soon, along with the sedum. Some of the lilies will, you know, start pressing up through. It's pretty great. And then we got our little color patch. I finally got some flowers, potted them up. I think this looks better this year than last, and I'm going to be adding a few more. Like, no problems. Like, next month I'm going to get like a dozen more pots, another bag of soil, and go to town. I had to limit it slightly for this month because I had other costs in mind. Carrots are growing well. They're not quite as far along as the beets, which sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, but it doesn't really matter. And then there's all the perennials and stuff in there. And out back, all those plants are doing really well. In fact, one of the irises is already blooming. If I remember, it's a Gothic iris. Yeah, it's the purple and yellow one. But everything back there is fine as well. So yeah, the garden is really, really growing well. The horseradish flowers towering over the others. I'm just going to leave them because, you know, I can actually take that seed. If I do decide to permaculture back here and sort of mix everything around natural mulch and stuff, I could have a huge, huge patch of horseradish. I mean, imagine if I had, you know, a 1/4 acre of nothing but horseradish, how tasty that would be. You know, I could make infinite infinite spread for all the foods. Rhubarb, horseradish, asparagus, you know, have some free seeding annuals and so forth. Have a no-till setup. You know, then it's not like it won't be fertile enough after all of the all of the mulch that was added. Natural mulch as it decays down and turns into dirt anyway. I'm going to be doing that each year anyway. I mean, if the garden stays here, the other thought that I've had, permaculturing this back part at least anyway, is to have a container garden right next to the house that'll be easier to maintain, and also there's already a fence there because that's like a cat garden. If I just expanded it out a little bit, I could have a huge container garden. You know, you could put your tomatoes, squash, turnips and stuff like that, and then you can't really do that with corn and beans, but I can always have just a patch out here for that. It wouldn't matter. Either way, the garden is definitely not done growing, let's just say that, and it's 10 times better than it was last year. And remember, there were problems. This hugelkultur, by the way, I'm telling you, for greens, apparently that's the way to go, because this is not remarkably different than this, with the exception of having wood added in, and you know, the plants here seem to love it. I've never been able to grow collards successfully before. The one time I got a few to grow, you know, low germination, and then the groundhog came and attacked them. This year, though, the fence is fortified enough, so I saw the groundhog, but it hasn't done anything. And I've heard and smelled a skunk, and I think what's happened is a skunk has taken up residence nearby and kicked the groundhog out. I'm thinking that's probably the case. And if so, more power to Mr. Skunk. I'd prefer him to be around, because skunks, as far as I know, don't really go... The skunk is more likely to burrow around in your compost pile and eat, you know, waste, because they're disgusting, so... They're crazy. By the way, have tasted this. Oh, English thyme, it smells so good. I like to rub my hands through and just sniff, you know, it doesn't get much better. That and the basil are like my favorite herbs. So yeah, nice garden. That's about all. Peace out.